Hello, I'm Justin. This is Kellen. Welcome to The Fizz. We've been talking about our lived experience with Opus 4.7, and there's been a bit of a stir in forums and news cycles about people actually leaving or putting aside the Claude Code ecosystem for a while and moving over to Codex due to the combination of things of one, ChatGPT 5.5 and Codex kind of catching up and being really good, and Opus 4.7 kind of being not so good. And, there isn't like one single article or news thing that's just like, but we're like experiencing this in real time. I've posted about it on LinkedIn a couple of times. I just have to ask, like, what the heck is happening with 4.7? And why did you sign us up for OpenAI this morning?
Well, I don't know what's happening with 4.7, but you said something interesting last week or earlier this week about some components of 4.7. Like, it seems like some of the building aspects of 4.7 are still pretty good. 4.6 level, do their job, but like conversational and like workflow driven, almost like Claude cowork kind of biz stuff, it's just horrible. I mean, really, really bad. Like, and I have like guesses, as best we can kind of do because stuff is kind of hidden from us. But my take is likely that the system prompt is just garbage. And the system prompt is the thing that we can't see. It's the thing
Right.
that, has safety guardrails and header level kind of instructions for every prompt that you give Opus or Codex. They all have them. And so, I mean, obviously if you're on like an open weight model, you can kind of set your own, but
Right.
on the frontier models, they do this, mostly for safety, like don't do this to this computer, whatever. But it's also seemingly like confused about when to stop, when to start. Like the amount of times that I am told, "Are you done for today? Are you done for today?
Right.
Start fresh tomorrow, or go to bed, or something like that." It's like not your job. Like one, we're in the fresh day.
Yeah, it's 10:30, my guy.
Yeah, we don't need to call it quits yet. And two, like I don't really need life advice. Like if I was gonna want life advice, I would just ask. Like, and I didn't ask. Opus 4.6, like, in some versions of 4.6 and, some like variants of 4.7, like personality is really good. It's, I think, a selling point for Anthropic. But 5.5's personality is not bad either. 5.4, there's all these freaking versions. People are just like, why is there so many versions?
Right.
4 was not very good. And personality, I think, goes a long way, not just like in like the ease of use, and feeling like there's vibes aren't like the most important thing, but like they are important in terms of like flow and like feeling like things are working towards an end goal, and like just telling me to stop or that I can't do a certain thing or it can't do something that I know it can. It knows it really can, is a real vibe killer. So yeah, I mean, that's my take. I don't know if it's like the model itself. Like, honestly, I do think though, when you're baselining your performance based on simply the model stats,
The benchmarks,
the benchmarks, like
benchmarks.
sometimes I think this is kind of a weird like quasi take that like, I think Opus 4.7 thinks it's smarter than it is. And so like it will go search its trained memory and like come up with something that's just absolute garbage and uninformed and like kind of late to the party, like months old. You're like, no, let's go ahead and just search. Like that's not even close. Like you just hallucinated that. That's not.
Yeah.
So it's my other take.
Yeah, I think this experience was, frustrating for me because it's affected my routines in an undesirable way. I'm still a big fan of the technology, obviously, and I'm working my way through it. And it's not like I've decided to not use AI for these things, right? But I think there is there's a pretty clear difference when you are using AI to do something like write code
Mm-hmm.
where even though you're still using an inference-based technology, it's closer to determinism. Like,
Yeah.
write a web page, build a Python script. I think that's been fine for me in my experience. But when the experience of using the AI solution is conversational, like a skill that asks you questions and directs you through a planning process, or I even thought about a situation of like people that have built agents that serve as help assistants on shopping sites or
Mm-hmm.
insurance portals or whatever it might be. When the core behavior of the model in those types of use cases changes to this degree, what do you do about this? Like, it's got a different personality, it's got different tendencies. It's definitely hallucinating a lot more. I think I told you and I posted on LinkedIn, like I almost forgot that hallucination was a thing.
Right.
That was a
Yeah.
huge problem for across the board in the early going. And like in the last several days, it's every encounter, it's like, you just made that up. I don't mind airing our own dirty laundry at all, but we have an AI skill that runs over the transcripts of our podcasts and drafts up suggestions for our newsletter. And it goes and it looks at the things we pinned to our Slack channel of like articles we thought were really interesting. And so I picked one. I said, I'd like to include this article in this week's newsletter. And so it put the hyperlink in and it wrote the tagline, but the tagline like wasn't even about that article whatsoever. Like this is like baseline hallucination 101 level mistake. And I was like, Claude, you didn't even go read the article to come up with you just like, and it's like, yeah, you're right. That's my bad. I won't do that. It's like, I used to joke about this. It's like, I won't do that again. I was like,
You
bull
will.
crap. Yes, you will.
You will.
But something I've been thinking about, and I don't have it's a suspicion of mine, I think, more than like hard evidence that's happening. And it's something I think we should be mindful of as the technology continues to advance. You know, even as recently as 3 to 6 months ago, I would advise someone how important it is to have control over your own knowledge base and context. You need something like a Notion or Google Drive or even Markdown files in a project folder where Claude can access information about you and what you're doing when it needs it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way you inject important context into the session. Claude doesn't know that by itself. But now Claude, and I think also OpenAI in a slightly different way, the systems are designed to maintain their own memory. And so now I'm even encountering situations where it's writing memories
Mm-hmm.
that either probably two primary symptoms I see here. Number one, the memory actually conflicts with something in my actual core knowledge.
Mm.
And so now the context is competing for what is the actual preference.
Right.
And maybe it didn't need to be a memory at all. It was just like in that session, I needed to clarify or correct something. So it's creating these conflicting issues. And then number two, that memory might be accurate based on the context of the conversation or the process I was working through, but then I'll be doing something else. And now the model or I'll just say the system, because I don't know if it's the model or the prompts or combination, right? Anchors on this detail as if it is critically important when it's not, right? And figuring out how to unbolt from that. So yeah, for me, Opus 4.7 has been a disappointment. Listen, there'd be different money lines on this of like, by the time this episode actually releases versus like a month from now, like when has Anthropic released something that addresses this? Because you've seen OpenAI's had this too, right? Where certain models just, people don't like working with them as much because of this sort of issue.
Yeah.
But the practical takeaway for me is if you build a process or a solution that involves the AI having any dialogue with another human being, or frankly, even another AI agent, like agent to agent handoffs, this is something you need to be mindful of because it will interpret your skill instructions differently. It might think to override them because it thinks it has a better way to do things. This is something you want to be out in front of if you're providing those types of solutions, either internally or externally. Because you can dial things back in, you can make changes, but you could have a very different customer experience tomorrow and not expecting to.
Yeah, the memory thing is interesting. because I've experienced this too. It's like maybe this is part of the system prompt as well to like just go heavy on the memory
Mm-hmm.
markdown entries. Sometimes it successfully merges like it's semantically trying to merge like
Mm-hmm.
memory concepts and ideas about a certain topic. Like don't commit unless I tell you to. And then it's
Right.
like, but there's another memory that says if we're in the flow, commit. Like it's just like
Yeah.
it's gonna naturally bloat the context. Like
Mm-hmm.
and it's also not gonna just like randomly just like pull all of your memory probably.
Right.
Um
Can't.
so yeah, it's just and I think like Anthropic and OpenAI and different providers are like there is always like kind of a chasing the shiny object.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true for everyone, but my guess is that the focus more recently has been on two things. One is security,
Yeah.
making sure it doesn't wipe a whole database or some
Security,
weird thing like
safety.
that you hear about, or run commands that could be theoretically malicious or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is uptime. The Anthropic's different routes have been horrific as far as
Mm-hmm.
like staying up.
Right.
It just hasn't been as much of an issue lately.
Mm-hmm.
And so my guess is they've been applying some more pressure on that front
Yeah.
to keep the system up.
Right.
Now it's keeping a crappier system up, but it is theoretically
So.
increasing the uptime. It still goes down from time to time, but I'm just saying,
Mm-hmm.
like, just in general, like that's my guess is that like because of their kind of poor performance in that regard,
Mm-hmm.
like I think that's probably been a big focus of theirs.
I agree.
And you haven't seen as many like big kind of flashy releases from like Cloud Code, or they're mostly fixes, So I think they're victims of kind of scope creep and kind of
Mm-hmm.
tech bloat as much as anyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that they're now kind of having to unwind, maybe not unwind, but like harden certain features so that they're not causing these personality issues and
Mm-hmm.
wherever that comes from, if it's the
Right.
model or the system prompt or like the injecting an enormous amount of memory files into
Mm-hmm.
context or whatever the case may be. Um, I think that's probably what's happening here. So I'll leave some hope that 4.7 is salvageable, but like
Mm-hmm.
at the current moment, you gotta be in there, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
I wouldn't be giving it an autonomous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be on top of that.
This is more of a meta thing that's happening in the news. It's kind of a segue to something that we want to get into. There's like this dual narrative that is happening recently. So there was a couple predictions that came out from each OpenAI and Anthropic. I think they have different predictions on how much time between now and a future state when AI is able to, like the AI models themselves are able to be self-improving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this idea of like, eventually the AIs will just work on themselves and no humans will need to work on the AIs, which is sort of a proxy narrative to nobody's going to write code anymore and nobody's
Right.
going to need to do this, right? And it's sort of like related meta narrative that I saw. I had a funny exchange on LinkedIn this morning. This sort of like classic consulting is dead kind of post that someone handed out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple of other people, we were joking like, oh, maybe we'll start a consulting firm whose purpose is to like help people make sure their consulting dies or like. But then this is real. So last week, separate announcements, both Anthropic and OpenAI announced like massive partnerships with big Wall Street firms and big four consulting outfits to establish ventures into enterprises to provide consulting for the adoption of AI. And so it's like, wait a minute. So like we need consulting, we don't need consulting, we need technical people, we don't need technical people. This just all this hype and noise, which, and I think to kind of tee up some of the thoughts we've been having on this, I still maintain I think we both do, there's a certain type of person that actually really likes technology and B is like willing to like put in the sweat and effort to really understand it. And like an analog, I'd go back to our prior chapter in BI and analytics, the whole self-service promise in analytics, right? Oh, you can build models and then everybody will be out there and they create their own stuff. There's a real difference between the type of person that sees like, hey, this number is wrong, or I'm not getting what I want. And they throw their hands up in the air and they say, this technology is garbage, to the person that's just like, oh, I understand what's going on here.
Right.
It's, oh, I'm going to, and I can fix it. And I think that's happening with AI as well, right? It's like, oh, it doesn't understand anything about me, or it's getting this wrong, or it's not. And there's that same thing is happening. And I think you have some really interesting thoughts on this, but I just feel like I am so far away from a world where people that are like, their role is to be really invested in this stuff and understanding it well and making it work for people.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a different future than, the AI, the machines will do it all themselves. So what are we just, we just going golfing all the time now, Kellen? What are we doing? Like,
Not ready for that.
yeah, but
I think, I mean, you nailed it. There's always like this promise of self-service, like in like almost every major technology era that never really materializes. What they really mean is self-service from a technical person, or like it does not like necessarily like a software engineer or like a coder or something, but like someone that is like comfortable with computers and can do things like that. So, kind of like the builders, people like to build on spreadsheets or they, can build a website page, things like that. They're not like on a development team per se.
Right.
They might be, but they're building stuff. And I don't think that's going anywhere until it's here. Like, and it's just constant promise for that. I don't think it's responsible to assume or plan that that's going to occur until it occurs. Like,
right.
Because I just heard it so many times. And this could be different, but like the more I use these tools, I'm like, we're not even close to a world like that. Human orchestration in this process is like mandatory in some form. So more and more stuff can be handed to an agent to code or to provide a really solid plan or whatever. But that's the secret sauce right now. So consulting isn't dead. And I would argue like a lot of positions that may have been removed in the last year or two shouldn't have been. And they missed an opportunity to transition people into roles that are really good for like an AI builder type of person that can provide an enormous amount of value to the organization that you're in. And, some companies may need a consultant to kind of advise that process over like for their employees. Some people may need to augment. Some people may not need consultants at all. They just need to get their people kind of, moving in that direction.
Right.
And you'd be surprised, I think, how many of these people pick it up so quickly and can do a lot of really cool things. So,
yeah. Like whenever I think about the displacement of employees, first as a caveat, I think that there's absolutely truth in statements like certain jobs just won't be needed. I think there's a truth to that. I do think a lot of the headcount reductions have been portrayed as very anticipatory about AI versus proven on something that's changed. Like they're being proactive is maybe the most polite way I could say that. But so you just imagine the dynamics of a typical team. There's a leader, whether it's supervisor, team leader, manager, whatever, and then there's people that report to that individual that serve a particular function. And so let's say a problem comes up on the leader. What does the leader typically do? They delegate. They delegate to the right person on their team and they say, hey, Kellen, we got this problem or this opportunity, this issue. Like, here's some important things. Can you go take care of this? And you would say, absolutely. You go off and you take care of it and you come report back. So we delegate to AI in a very similar way, right? We say, hey, Claude, I'd like you to do this. But the pace of interaction with Claude or any AI is so much more frequent and faster for a unit of work than it is with a person. And so I just like, I think there's a practicality mismatch in some scenarios Like if I say, hey, Kellen, like Darla, a VP of sales, she wants some new reporting. Here's the kind of things she's interested on. Like, can you go work on this? With you as a person, you probably say like, yeah, let me come back to you this afternoon or tomorrow, whatever, and we can talk about it. If you're Claude, you're asking me clarifying questions like right now
Mm-hmm.
and like
Yeah.
doing the work like right now, unless I've put you in. And I just think people talk about the agent swarms and the Ralph Wiggum loops and all these sort of things. I just think that is not practical in the context, in my opinion, for most service oriented roles today, right? Responding to a customer issue or building a feature or delivering
Mm-hmm.
on a scope of work or something like that. And so I think it's really about the people using those tools and still working together in a similar way. Maybe people have different modifications of roles, but I think we're so far away from a future where it's like these things are DOA. Like we don't need consultants, or we don't need analytics, or we don't need software
Right.
engineers. And so I just like, what's true, folks? Like, what are we doing? So what are we doing?
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things I think that AI fits like just perfectly into
Mm-hmm.
as like a replacement, but I think it's being over at the current state of the technology.
Yeah.
People are attempting to have AI replace people that it shouldn't. I think like a simple maybe way that I
Mm-hmm.
think about it. The easy one I think is like AI meeting notes. Like I
Right.
think everyone, technology or non-technology person, like is using AI meeting notes. Like,
Right.
so if your job is like jump on meetings and take notes, you could be at risk.
Yeah.
But like that's not generally a job that is
Mm-hmm.
like very like if you're like an executive assistant or something, and
Mm-hmm.
that's part of your job, that's different, right? Because there's a
Right.
lot of other things that are happening as
Mm-hmm.
well. But if like your only job is meeting notes, could
Mm-hmm.
be in trouble. But yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. And like I think the proof is that there's just no way that Anthropic and OpenAI and these other firms are partnering with these massive professional services firms. There's a conflict here,
Mm-hmm.
or not a conflict. There's a messaging split
So
thing.
competing narratives.
Yeah, there's competing narratives happening where you have one saying you can do anything in self-service
Mm-hmm.
and build anything you want, and then there's another that is saying, well, but we need massive professional services companies to actually
Mm-hmm.
integrate our technology.
Right.
So obviously there is a Venn diagram here where
Mm-hmm.
that could make sense, but it's enough of a competing narrative that makes you
Mm-hmm.
think like, well, humans are still quite important. And I agree
Right.
with that. I have agreed with that for quite some time through the BI and analytics self-service kind of revolution
Mm-hmm.
zone to AI self-service. So I don't think that's going to change. I'd bet a lot of money that's not going to change for a long time. I think a big part of it too, by the way, is trust. And human beings just by nature have trust has to be earned, and it can be taken away really, really quickly.
I think this is kind of the callback to our experience with 4.7 a bit, which why I think the need for people who become professionals in this is only going to increase is the two categories of work. I think there's a big difference between I use AI to build software. Like that's clearly going to happen, right? Build more software faster. We'll build a lot of junk, but like that world has changed versus the other narrative that's happening with AI of like, oh, we have infinite knowledge and PhD level, and we're going to do more scientific research and we're going to find a cure for cancer. And you're going to have a personal assistant in your pocket everywhere you go. This calls back to the old IBM paper from like the late 70s or the early 80s, where they said like a machine can never be allowed to make a decision because you can't hold the machine accountable.
Hmm.
Like we're going to face that one head on, right?
Yep.
It's like when this, I mean, you hear sad stories about this even today of like when the machine decides to deny the claim, or the machine makes the error that brings the system down, or the machine deletes the database, or the machine, because these things can go so fast and do so much, we couldn't keep up. Like we can't keep up with them. And so this idea that like a person is like managing, like you can manage a lot of agents, but like if that's all you were doing, like I think you run the risk of like, yeah, no, we are delegating off a certain level of responsibility, which if that's a prosperous future that everyone wants to go towards, it's going to take a lot of specialization, expertise, and help to get there.
100%.
And we're learning this stuff in real time, just like everybody else, in a potentially different way. If AI is going to largely serve some of those jobs that someone would come into at a $20 an hour, $25 an hour starting administrative job, if those are gone.
Hmm.
Which, side note, there's also some studies out there that suggest like the cost of running AI compute for some of these roles is higher than the cost of the employee,
Wild.
which is kind of like, oh,
Wild.
so.
That
But
just bring an interesting like dilemma society, like from a society perspective, where you're
mhm,
like breaking the ladder a little bit.
yeah,
And so, like, how does someone ever get to mid level? So I don't know. There's potentially like an opportunity here for some firms to figure out what that new ladder looks like to bring in. These could be like very smart hires that like you want in your organization. They're just lacking, a couple things.
yeah,
And so you wouldn't want to. I don't think you'd want to like stop that ladder because you can cut a few bucks. You know, aside from the compute thing, whatever. Like
right.
they're like that.
Yeah, and I think things will change over time,
Hmm.
maybe faster than prior step changes in technology or industrial changes. But I think skill development of people is a really interesting one. I think that's big. If Because you hear these competing narratives like, oh, we don't need juniors anymore. But to be really, really top tier effective with AI coding tools, you need to be more senior,
Hmm.
right? Because you need to be able to instruct it well and catch it and review it, know what you're looking for. So a junior can't step into that based on the way they've been educated so far. Like they've gone through all
Right.
this training to learn how to write code and understand a coding language or computer science and all these things. So how do we change what we're doing so that they come in and can be productive and can contribute and create value? I think it's an interesting societal question more than anything. But yeah, and the stuff's weird. I keep posting. That's like a word I keep coming back to when I'm writing posts. Is like AI is freaking weird, man. Model changes, personality gets weird.
Yep.
It can't like every session is basically like this thing waking up from cold, you know? Yeah,
100%.
stuff like that. But yeah, there's just my kind of closing thought and kind of everything we talked about today. There's these two categories of work: building stuff and then like actually talking with AI. I think the former has a ton of steam and like momentum. The latter is really fragile to
Hmm.
model changes and the way that the frontier systems themselves work. Just
Yeah.
curious how that gets solved over time. And yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for change and people looking for help with that change. I don't, if it proves out to be true, I'll gladly be wrong. But the idea that like, oh, nobody's going to need help with AI because the AI provides all the help. Well, okay. Yeah, AI is extremely helpful and I'd like you to get a lot of help from AI, but then why did Anthropic roll up to Wall Street and say, hey, JP
Yeah.
Morgan, like, let's get
Interesting
going.
play.
Yeah. Let's get going. I love that take. I've talked to a lot of, I've been catching up with a lot of people recently and asking me how we're doing and what we're excited about. And it's like, listen, if you've had an idea to do something,
Hmm.
a side hustle, go out on your own or bring, even in the company you work for today, like bring a new idea to life. Like, holy cow, never been a better time,
Yeah.
you know, go get it, go get some, right?
We'll burn some tokens, baby.
Yeah. Let's burn some tokens. Right. But, I also understand the other side of it, which is certain professions are really getting disrupted and people have a lot of built up sense of identity in those things. And, can't can't control what's happening around you, but you can control how you're responding to it and what you're choosing to do. And yeah, there's like two modes for people, like the fear mode
Yeah.
and the excitement mode. And I oscillate between both of them.
Yep.
Like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I don't get afraid about what this could mean for, you know, my future and things like that. But I'm also really excited about it. So
Yep.
lean in.
That's a good take. I like that. Yeah.
I think the Tiny Bottle team is going to be rocking some codecs a little bit over the next few weeks.
Yep.
Give that a good old run. Maybe we'll have something to report on comparison to Cloud Code. I mean, I'm still a big fan of Anthropic. Obviously, this sort of a bummer. But if it's happened this time, it's a reminder, hey, like model releases and improvements is currently a big deal for these shops.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a lot of marketing activity. They're both pushing to get to an IPO status. So like, there's not a world where they just sit on the side and be like, "No, we're good. We just stop trying to improve our models." So,
Oh, and I got to think because, like on these pro plans and so forth, there's a lot of telemetry. Good God, I bet they're just getting fed so much rage from their user base. So I was curious. I mean, it's going to get some aspects of it are definitely going to get fixed. So we'll see what they do about it.
did you see there was an interview with Boris, the lead engineer for Cloud Code at Anthropic?
I saw it on YouTube. I saw the I didn't watch the video yet.
But he was basically explaining they have some sort of telemetry when anybody is like cursing Claude out.
Okay.
They don't record. They don't record the actual responses, but they send a signal like that this happened as like a signal, and so they call it the F's chart. It's like people just freaking out, and he's like that's like a key indicator for them.
I bet it's high right now.
Sentiment analysis feedback, like right on the spot. All right. Well, if you enjoy tuning in, watching the Fizz, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, like and follow on all the places. Tell your friends. Until next time, have a nice week.
Peace.